Hello and welcome to The Drug Trip, and thank you for clicking on this video. The purpose of this channel will be to share accounts and experiences with various substances so that the viewers can gain an insight as to what those experiences are like. I also hope that these experiences will reduce self-harm and substance abuse, as I do not endorse, condone or encourage the abuse of any illicit substance, drug or medication. I will credit the authors in the description below, and I also upload new trip reports on Sunday and Wednesday every week, so if you do happen to enjoy the content, please consider subscribing. So, some backstory on myself. I'm your average 32-year-old male, married with a young son. I work a full-time job as well, running a side business to help pay my bills. I don't drink much, and I like to dabble with psychedelics to learn more about myself and the world around me. At the time of writing this, I had tried DMT, LSD and mushrooms, with all of the experiences being quite pleasant and memorable. I gained a lot from each without any issues and was able to tolerate the effects. That was until my recent mushroom journey, or nightmare. I had recently started to wean myself off Lexapro because I really didn't like how it flatlined my emotions. Sure, it helped with managing my depression, however, it left things very washed out. Things had started to look up and I thought it would be a good time to start coming off them. I was on only around 10 milligrams, so it wasn't a massive decrease, and from what I had read on the net, some SSRIs can actually dull some trips. This fact would play a major factor in my upcoming trip. I had about 4 grams of dried mushrooms left over and was looking for a good time to drop them. My wife is unbeknownst to my psychedelic usage and doesn't approve of the use of these so-called drugs. So if she was away, or I knew I had a free day from father and husband duty, I would try and find the time to trip, usually 4 or 5 weeks apart. After listening to a lot of various podcasts, the idea of using psychedelics as medicine really appealed to me. This time around though, the set was far from ideal. The wife and I had recently been fighting, and she decided that it would be best if we spent a few days apart to cool things down. Her and my son were staying at the in-laws, and the selfish part of me thought it would be the perfect time to try a heroic dose. Coming home late that evening, the thought of going deep into the mushroom state was starting to excite and slightly scare me. I thought that smoking a little weed beforehand would help calm my nerves. Not really a great idea. And as since I was no longer on Lexapro, weed made me slightly paranoid and anxious. I had dinner around 8 PM and I thought I would steep the 4 grams of mushrooms in tea and ingest them at around 8:30. As I poured the remaining shrooms into the cup, I thought, wow, that's a fair bit more than I usually have. I was a little hesitant to drink it, but because I had the whole house to myself and I thought I couldn't have a better setting, I started to lock the house up for some reason and made sure everything was comfortable for the trip. The time was around 9:45 PM and I was watching That 70s Show on TV in bed. I really wasn't paying too much attention to what was going on. I was slightly stoned from the weed and was waiting for the onset of the mushrooms to kick in. My first inkling that things weren't quite right was when I started to notice how fake the acting was on the show. The laugh track was really noticeable and the show seemed different. I started to get drawn into the show and felt like I was actually in the scene with them. The big stopper though was when the dialogue in the show started to revolve around current themes in my life and they would start to mention my name. Whoa, I staggered. This was really different to my other trips. The actors and actresses then started to talk to me. Holy shit, I must be tripping really hard, I thought to myself. I reached over the bed and quickly turned the television off. A sense of relief came over me as the horror of the TV trip was no more. But that feeling was quickly replaced by physical pains as I realised I was now in complete darkness with the body load coming on really harsh. The darkness was replaced by vivid, spiralling patterns and full colour, similar to DMT visuals. My body was starting to feel really heavy, and the dissociation also started to begin. I no longer felt like I was in my bedroom, my house, or on Earth for that matter. As I started into the spiralling mechanical patterns, it occurred to me that unlike DMT, this trip wasn't going to be a 15-minute blast off, but maybe a 6-hour roller coaster. That thought started to scare the shit out of me. I quickly grabbed my phone and started searching for some music that would calm me down. The phone itself felt like a toy, and navigating the various screens and menus felt completely alien. The only music I was able to find was house rave music. Not quite what I needed, but it would do to help me get through the physical pains that were kicking in. So here I am, sitting in complete darkness, looking at spiralling vivid full-colour light shows with techno music in the background. This isn't too bad, I thought to myself. That was until I realised that the patterns I was starting were me. I were the patterns. I no longer felt like I was a human being, but a soul that was everything but. Each time the pattern would rotate, shift or fold, these sharp pains would shoot through my being. It was really starting to scare me, and the atmosphere of the trip took a really dark turn when the thought that I had died started to slip into my thoughts. Shit. Okay, so I'm officially going to be the first person to die from magic mushrooms. Not cool. Then as the death thoughts started to get louder, this presence started to emerge, similar to the presence of a DMT trip. The presence was all around me and felt like on anything else on earth. It felt old, ancient, and from a different universe. I refer to this presence as the Mushroom God, and in an almost angry voice, the God asked me what I wanted to receive and how dare I summon him. This sent death thoughts into overdrive, and for some reason I thought that if I answered incorrectly, I would really die. In an attempt to save my life, I don't know if I was screaming, talking, or thinking this, but I started yelling peace and love over and over for what felt like 20 minutes. The patterns had faded and I was in complete hyperspace. At this point, the overwhelming feeling of stupidity and sadness ran over me. Stupidity because I had just killed myself overdosing on mushrooms, and sadness because everything I knew was no longer. I was no longer a father, a husband, or human. It felt similar to the ego death I had experienced on DMT, however much darker, because I also felt like I had physically died as well. I'm not sure if the following events actually happened or if I was dreaming them. The trip had turned into a dark hell which I could feel nothing but intense pain, and I had literally felt I had gone crazy. I felt like there was no turning back, and all I could think of and wish was that it would all end. Nothing was making sense. My soul was stuck in a fucked up universe, and feelings of regret, sadness and fright was all I was. Something inside me looked over to the corner of the room and seen these small red lights. What is that? I thought. What are those funny red lights? Somewhere in my mind it told me that they were numbers of a digital clock. 11:45 PM. What the hell? Where have I been for the last 2.5 hours? My mind was lost. Where had I been? I think the visions and feelings got too intense that I passed out at some point. I knew I was still tripping hard, but I didn't recognise my surroundings and I couldn't figure out if I was standing or laying down. Suddenly, a part of me thought that if I could find the mirror and somehow salvage my life and remind myself that I was just having a bad trip, I started to stagger to the bathroom mirror and what I saw shocked me. I didn't recognise that being stood in front of me. I knew him, but from where? He looked plastic, almost like he was made out of wax. The person who was myself then began to melt. Oh fuck, I need to get out of here. I thought this as I ran towards the front door. If I can get outside and see the night sky and nature, maybe it can remind me that I'm still on Earth and that I'm still a human being. The night sky looked amazing, almost like a Van Gogh painting. The trees and mountains seemed to be breathing, and the mushroom godhead was still in the air, but this time, he or she seemed to be approving. This gigantic feeling of relief washed over me. As I was about to scream out, "I'm still here!" I suddenly found myself back in the bedroom, in the fetal position, holding my stomach, looking towards the digital clock in the corner. 11:44 PM. Wasn't it 11:45 when I looked up? It didn't make any sense. With breaks and gaps in events, I went from looking at the bathroom mirror to running to the front door to look outside at the night sky. At this point, I had given up all hope of getting back to reality and coming down from this bad mushroom trip. I began to dissolve into hyperspace again, and the images of myself lying on my bed, murmuring something about how much I love my wife and son, started to repeat. I awoke to the sound of the TV playing some early morning MMA show. I looked at the digital clock, 4:15 AM. I still didn't feel right. I still didn't know who I was. The fighters on the MMA show looked like WWE figurines made of plastic. I didn't recognise any of them. I reached across the bed and saw my phone. Shit. Did I ring anyone while I was tripping? Had it been hours or days? I didn't even know my name. I looked at the phone screen and just sat there gazing at this picture of a father and a son. The longer I stared, the more I realised that the picture was of myself and my son. I felt like crying. I survived. Like being reborn, all these memories of who I was and where I lived came flooding back into my mind. It was like I was being rebooted or restarted like a computer. I then slowly started to drift off back to sleep. It's now been 2 days since the experience, and all I can think about is how much my wife and son mean to me. Even though my experience was like a terrible nightmare, I feel like it got my priorities in order. I'm still processing what the mushrooms were trying to show me. I don't think I'll be jumping back into a 4-gram dose anytime soon, but like always, I have a new respect for the medicinal psychedelics. Set and setting should always be the first thing to check off. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this experience. If you did, please consider liking the video and subscribing. If you would like me to upload a particular drug experience, please let me know in the comments below. Above all, please be safe, be responsible, and be well.